Welcome to day 3, building a startup from scratch. Today, at the agenda, sales course, FFA coming up with new features, talking with the developers, making sure everything's alright with our day job. 12 p.m., we just came back from the gym and we're ready to get started a full day of work on the startup.
When the sun rises, I wake up and chase my dreams. I won't regret when the sun sets, 'cause I live my life like I'm a beast.
The most important thing when you're paying somebody to create code is to create documentation. If there's no documentation on your code is not worth anything. Zero. Because nobody's going to be able to work on this code in the future. It's kind of complicated when you're not a coder, but it's like it becomes a spaghetti. Somebody comes in and it's just a big spaghetti and meatball. They don't know where to connect the inputs, and it just becomes unusable. Just become a big pile of mess. Always have documentation on code you buy. It's number 1 rule. Even though the programmer is going to tell you I'm done, when you go to test it, you got to find the bugs, and there's a lot of bugs. And this is the same thing as when you're doing a startup. When you're creating a startup, you have bugs in your code that you're not aware of and that you can only figure out with pain. That's the only way. Your startup is not going to work. Your business is not going to work. Or either you're not going to find customers, or they're not going to want to pay, or you're not going to be able to market it properly. And those are the bugs you're figuring out. And the cause of the bugs is in the code. And what is your code in a startup? That's your business plan, right? So you got to go back to the code and change it and then test it again. User testing, back to the code. And this is why, as you saw in the day 2 video, this template of a business plan that I showed you, you're going to be doing this over and over again. Without the help of somebody that knows how to code, you're going to get abused every time. You're going to get taken advantage of every time. And that's what we want to avoid. So try to find a friend that knows how to code that can give you 5 to 10 minutes. Obviously, if you go to your friend that knows how to code and you ask him to do the whole code for you, that's no cool. But if you tell your friend that, hey, can I borrow your assistance for 5-10 minutes, man? Like, this is really important for me. He's going to say yes. He's going to help you out. There's a whole aspect of salary negotiation. I would say it's like every other negotiation that exists. You could learn sales. That's a really great way to get better at negotiation, is just getting better at sales, at communicating, at connecting, creating rapport. 5 tips I would give you is use a platform that protects you, or a co-founder. So a platform that protects you, like Upwork or Fiverr, or a co-founder that joins in your team for equity. That's number 1. You need to be protected. Number 2 is you need to be very rigorous about the definition of what you're trying to achieve so that there can be no misunderstanding. Everything needs to be on paper. Number 3, when you communicate these details to the developers over a call, you have to record the call to protect yourself. Number 4, when these misunderstandings arise, hold your ground, but don't get emotional. It's not an ego battle where you're trying to prove that you're right. It's just you're putting the facts on the table. It's a very logical discussion, right? And number 5, testing. Keep testing. Many users, 100 users if you can, from every angle, every device in your house. Those are the 5 rules to avoid a lot of issues with a developer. Now, dealing with a developer is a little bit like doing a sale. When you're selling somebody something, you're always going to encounter objections, right? It's going to be really rare that you're selling a car, let's say, or you're selling your application to an investor, right? So let's say you're selling your startup to an investor. You do your pitch, right? So you create a rapport, you present yourself, then you sell the idea. You show the value, right? And then you got to close. You got to get them to give you the money for a percentage. In between the sell and the close, there's always going to be objections. These objections, you got to get your perspective that these objections are good and that you can overcome them. And this is what I'm learning with my man, Andy Elliott. In the same way that with the programmer, overcoming these misunderstandings is always going to happen. You need to keep a positive perspective, know you're going to be able to figure out a solution, and keeps moving towards the close. I want to thank you for being here today on day 3, and I will 100% be with you tomorrow, day 4.
I'm a full-time beast!